Hi everyone, hope you're all well. Now a little while back I made a video on how to use the X-Rite color card checker with your GoPro cameras and show you how to calibrate your colors across multiple GoPro cameras and so get better color accuracy across all the clips in your timeline. This is a color card checker here. Now to be able to calibrate and get better color accuracy across multiple GoPros, even when shooting in the same scene at different angles, has been a long niggling issue in my filming, and in the ideal world this shouldn't be necessary. I will show you in Final Cut Pro how to make the color corrections needed to give a much more professional look in your edits in a much quicker manner than I did before using the iPhone 12 Max, this little guy here. As you may have noted back then when I made the film about the X-Rite color board checker, it would be quite time consuming to use out on the field, putting it in front of each of the cameras, and in post edit picking out colors, and so it would make the filming process quite long. So that's a big factor. It also happens about the time I got the X-Rite color card checker, I also got the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I got the iPhone 12 because of its ability to perform in low light conditions, something I needed to do to film in the autumn light, and as you're probably aware, the GoPro cameras are not very good in low light conditions. And it also has the ability to zoom, providing a bit more flexibility out in the field when shooting. But there is one feature of this phone I did not really appreciate at the time, and that's the fact that it can record in 10-bit HDR, and how really good it is. It is this feature which I'm going to show you how to use, and so color correct the palettes across all your GoPro cameras in Final Cut Pro. Easily stuffable. The same mount you get in the box. I've been generally taking up to 4 GoPro cameras with me at any one time to film my films. Also one Insta360 One X camera, and now this iPhone. As you imagine, that's a lot of cameras to handle, pick up, put down, switch on, film, ride by, pick up, move on, and so on and repeat. Now, as I said before, and perhaps you may have noticed too, that if you use multiple GoPro cameras, even with the same settings, the raw footage that comes back can be quite different in color, exposure and saturation, even though they're in the same scene taking the same footage a few meters apart, though at different angles. Now, I noticed when I brought iPhone footage back into Final Cut Pro how much better it looked, visually quite stunning. To my eyes, the colors look rich, vibrant, and certainly reflected more of the colors out in the forests. And another benefit I found, that footage brought in from the iPhone would not have to be corrected for exposure and other such things. It may need a little bit of tweaking, but considering to the GoPro, far less if not at all. My GoPro footage is taken with mostly automatic settings with Pro Shoot turned on and color set to flat. That may be the root of my problems, but I have learnt to my cost that not using automatic settings can result in no footage at all. So I can still bring back footage I can use, even if it's not perfect, as against just losing it completely because I've forgotten to change something manually, readjusting something out of the field, fiddling around with the GoPro cameras. And so most of the time, the GoPro footage brought back has to be corrected, and this, said before, is a very time-consuming process. And this is understandable due to the settings that I have. But like I said before, they're all using the same settings, so it shouldn't really be necessary. In Final Cut Pro, I go through each and every GoPro clip, and a hell of a lot of clips, and manually readjust the exposure, maybe some saturation. The end result I'll be mostly happy with, but those GoPro colors I found when put up against the iPhone were not wow, eye-popping, just didn't have it. And then it came to me while using Final Cut Pro, it has a feature that I have not really used in the past because it hasn't worked in my favor. And that's the color matching addition tool. But I thought, what if I tried it on a GoPro clip, matched it against an iPhone clip? So I did. Then I did it again and again and again. And the transformation was wow. And so that gave me that accuracy I needed in my timeline to have that consistency of colors across clips, across cameras. And I found out it is so much quicker to apply. It works about 90% of the time, maybe you have to tweak a few cases, but it's so much quicker and less hassles than it was before. Now you may be wondering what app I use on the iPhone to record the footage. I use an app called Filmic Pro. I started using the app when I got the iPhone 12, though I have heard of it a while back when it was mentioned in the keynote presentation at an Apple WWC event a couple of years back. I had back then an iPhone 8 and I wish I had tried out the app back then because the options it gives me are quite revealing. If you have an iPhone, you ought to try your iPhone with your GoPros out in the scene. There are a lot of options in the Filmic app Pro, and so I've settled on just a few and keeping mostly automatic settings as I do on the GoPro. The ones I do fiddle with are the iPhone camera lens options that give me ultra wide, wide and telephoto. Useful if I can't get close up to what I want to do, I want to get more of the scene. And the ability to manually focus and see what I'm focusing on using the iPhone screen. Those last two I still leave to automatic settings, but to have those options if needed, if I see something or have some inspiration, is great. What is really neat is much easier than faffing around with GoPro settings. So it's kind of tempting, I thought, to replace all the GoPros with iPhones, but as you can imagine, that's quite expensive. It does have a few disadvantages. GoPros are a bit tougher out in the field and a bit more waterproof, and so that's not going to happen anytime soon. So let me show you how I do this and incorporate this now into my edit workflow. Okay, so we're back at my computer and I have a Final Cut Pro project already open with a previous mountain bike video that I made earlier in the timeline. In that timeline I have clips from the various GoPro cameras that I use, the 5, 7 and 8. I also have an Insta360 One X 360 clip in there, and also what we're looking at, the iPhone 12 clips, they're being dispersed in that timeline too. Now before I go any further, the iPhone 12 records in HDR format, a different color space to my project, and so I have to convert that into SDR color space format. This I've already done, so let's go on to the timeline and see what we have. So within Final Cut Pro, and within that is my project, and in this timeline I have various GoPro clips, iPhone clips, and Insta360 One X clips. We have in this window here a waveform display showing the luminancy of the clip at the time. This will be using to make some corrections, and with that goes the color board with the exposure, and there we make corrections too. Let's have a look at the first GoPro clip. It looks pretty washed out, and this is to be expected because we're automatic settings, we have color set to flat. But one of the problems I have is every clip has this, where the exposure is way above 100 and shadows are not hitting the 0 mark. So I still have to make this adjustment, and let's do that. So bring that down, and this really does make a difference, and bring down those midtones, and be quite happy with results. But if you have a look now at the iPhone clip where I have not had to do anything at all, the difference in vibrancy and color, to my eyes, depth is there. I mean, look at the bark. It just reflects what I saw out on the field. Whereas we go to the GoPro clip, there's something slightly missing here, and the problem I had is trying to find what was missing, and this is where the iPhone 12 video clips make the difference. They fill in that missing gap. So even though I've got a really good clip here and I'm quite happy with that, let's use the color matching feature. So if we go to the GUI, go to match color, two windows will split. This is the GoPro clip we're trying to correct. We'll now move along the timeline to an iPhone reference clip we want to calibrate against. And I'll pick some point here, click that, and automatically it makes the change. And see the difference it makes in that color. If I just cancel that, do that again, move along timeline, pick some point in the reference clip, apply, and that just seems to be a lot better, a lot more vibrant, a lot more depth. So apply the match, and we can see, looking at the Luma waveform, that we're still within range. I think the shadows are just a tad too low, and the midtones need some adjustment. So what I would do is now go through each of these clips in turn doing this. So I'd go color match, Alt Option Command M, go to the reference clip, and there you didn't see much difference. This clip is actually a pretty good GoPro clip, and if all my GoPro clips came out like this, in that sort of color vibrancy, I'll be quite happy. But as you'll see in a moment, not all of them do this. So that's where the real corrections have to be made. This one is quite acceptable, but I'm going to apply the match anyway. Go to the reference iPhone clip, apply some match, There, that the grass looks good. Apply the match, bring down the exposure. I think shadows are good, mid-tones are good. Move on to the next clip. This one definitely looks a bit more washed out. And it doesn't matter which way round you do the exposure adjustments. But I have found if you do this first, you might still have to come back in here and make the adjustments anyway. So go to the clip, do the match, go to the reference, iPhone clip, boost those colors. Just love it, just love it. Apply the match. See, just to do further little tweaks, move those shadows up. Go to the next clip, do the color match, go to the reference clip, very, very good. Apply that. I think the exposure is high, yes it is. Bring that down, tweak the shadows a bit, do mid-tones. This one is typical of a GoPro camera clip I would have. Looks very washed out, and that's shown obviously in the waveform. Look at those, everything's up above the 40 mark. You need to bring that down, bring those shadows down, bring those mid-tones down. But the thing is, this mid-tone does work for me, but there are some cases where it still doesn't give that wow factor. If I put it there, I'd be quite happy with that in the past. But let's apply the color match and see what we get. See, just that bit more vibrancy, and that's what I want, sort of depth in color. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll do one more GoPro, and again this is washed out. Yes, it needs some adjustments. Let's apply the color match first. Go to a reference clip again, bring it back, apply that, bring that down, and I think we're good to go. So compare it with the iPhone clip. There's another one here. These have not had any adjustment at all. I've just imported them, converted them from HDR format to SDR color space. These are now, it'd be hard pushed to see any real difference. Maybe some little bit of tweaking going on, but most of the work has been done here. Let's do one more, and that's use the Insta360 One X camera. Now this already has a LUT applied. If I turn off the LUT, this is Insta360 One X camera LUT, and you do need to apply this. But if I turn that off, that's log space color. Apply their LUT, brings it back a little. But if you look at the waveform, the shadows are quite high, so we need to go back there and bring down those shadows a tad. That's better again. But wait till I apply the color match. So apply the color match, go to a reference iPhone clip, click it, and that is just much more vibrant. I don't normally have to do that too much on the white camera clips. We take these two clips out and just bring all these clips back together. That's a much closer match, and I'll be quite happy with that. That's maybe, now looking at it, got a teeny bit too much saturation in it. Just move that down. And that looks more like you only ever took it from one camera. If you look at the dirt, there's an indication of how it changes in the grass. Now, I would say that's very good. For me, applying now color matching against an iPhone reference clip brought in HDR to SDR color space. Using this method, using the color match, has not only provided a much quicker way of making those color adjustments, it also, in my eyes, is much more accurate. And this is what I'm going to be using now going forward in my editing flow. I'm going to be sure to use the iPhone for most of the scenes, if not every scene, if that's possible, to be sure that I can bring that back and correct those GoPros. Now, I hope you found this useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please let me know down in the comments. Be sure to turn on notifications to be sure you don't miss any future videos like this, and do hit that subscribe button. Keep safe, keep well. Catch up with you guys next time.